All right, hi. So this is your wheel head. When I refer to the wheel head, this is what I'm referring to. This is your splash pan. They're a little bit different on some of the other wheels, but basically you have a key and a little notch where these fit together up underneath the wheel. Every day after class, this will be filled with mud and probably pieces of clay. You will very carefully take it off and hold it at an angle like this, and then you will take the chunks of clay and throw them into the dumpster outside, and then you will rinse and clean all of the clay off of the splash pans in the sinks outside. Be careful not to run the water because we don't want to waste water. Use the water that's already in the buckets outside, and then do a quick rinse after you clean them. All right, so those fit right underneath the wheel head. And then that little key fits into the notch, just like I showed you. All right, so we're throwing on a wheel head that does not have pegs, and I'll go over pegs and using a bat in a few minutes. You guys will all have a pottery toolkit like this one. It's very important that you take these tools out and bring something to class to carry your tools in. You can go get a little toolbox from the dollar store, but have your tools together and have them out of this bag. If I come over to help you while you're working, I don't want to have to sit and wait while you pull tools out of this. So make sure that you do that and put them in the toolkit ahead of time. It's also good to just have your tools out and ready to go. All right. The extra tools that you were supposed to get that I told you guys about a month ago about is this red rubber rib and your serrated rib. It is good to take a Sharpie and put your name on the red rubber rib. That way, if it gets dropped or if it falls into the sinks outside, we can collect it, hopefully. Sometimes it's a little bit hard because it sinks, but we'll know who it belongs to. Okay, so we're not going to be using those right away. You're also going to have a bucket of water. You can put your sponge in the water. You'll need your needle tool out and your wooden rib. And these two ribs, this one comes with the kit, and your wooden modeling tool. Now, if we could get a close-up of the wire tool, your wire tool comes in the kit just like this, okay? What you want to do is you want to unwrap it, and make sure you're unwrapping it the right way. You don't want to tangle it. You should put this through 3 times and it should come apart, okay? You want to always put this away the way that it came, because if you don't, you can get kinks in it, and this can bend and then it will fray, and these kind of separate, and I've seen students get cut by the frayed area. Another thing that happens is if this gets bent, when you go to cut your piece off the wheel, that probably doesn't make sense to you right now, but it will. It can cut up into the bottom of your piece, okay? So to put this back together the way it came, you're going to hold the handle and you're going to wrap it around 3 fingers. 1, 2, okay, 2 times should be enough, and then you're going to tuck the handle up under 3 times. So 1, 2, 3. And that's going to prevent it from fraying and from getting bent before the next class period, okay? Very important. Take care of your tools. All right, so at this point, you should all have 4 pieces of clay that look kind of like this. Once you have that ball of clay, you can kind of hit it into what looks like a cone shape, okay? If you have any areas like this that they don't look smooth, just take your thumb and just kind of smooth those areas out. So if you have any folds or anything, smooth them out. You shouldn't have any folds or divots on the bottom either. This is going to make it easier to center, okay? Let's go ahead and look at the control panel over here. All of these wheels go counterclockwise. That little light indicates that the wheel is turned on. Again, it may be different on the yellow wheels, but they're all pretty much the same. This determines whether the wheel is going clockwise or counterclockwise. They all should be going counterclockwise. Okay. This is your pedal. Okay. What I suggest to students when they first start is once you get the speed that you want to go, take your foot off the pedal and move this away from you so you're not tempted to keep doing this, okay? Or slowing the wheel or stopping quickly. Because every time you do that, that can throw your piece off center. And everything that I'm telling you about your piece going off center, there are many things that can make your clay go off center. So it's very important to pay attention when I say this can make your clay go off center, because it's not easy to center. I've had students where it takes a couple weeks to learn, maybe even a month, okay? So another thing I want to do is I'm going to be referring to the wheel as a clock. Not a digital clock like you have on your phone, but an old school clock that hangs on the wall with the numbers, okay? The clock is going to be facing me, and same with you. When you're sitting at your wheel, the clock is going to be facing you. You're always going to be working in this area right here where you see the red arrows, okay? Your left hand is always going to stay between 7 and 8. Your right hand is going to be right over here between 4 and 5, okay? You're always going to put water at 12 o'clock. So if I come over and I'm helping you and I say, put your right hand at 4, your left hand at between 7 and 8, that's what I'm referring to. When you're opening up the clay, you're going to be pulling toward 3 and 9 o'clock. All right. So to get started, you're going to, and this might seem, sorry, there's a mosquito in here. This might seem counterintuitive, but you're going to wet the wheel head and then you're going to dry it. Okay? You don't want the wheel head to be shiny and slippery with water. We're just going to dampen it a little bit. Okay? And you saw how much I kind of dried it, but I can still feel water on there. All right, I'm going to take my ball of clay, and I know you guys can see the concentric rings here. If you're throwing on a bat, you may not have that, and what you can do if you're throwing on a bat is you can take a pencil and you can spin the wheel and hold the pencil in one place and create your own rings. All right, so we're going to place the clay down. You can do it one of two ways. I like to just throw my clay down. I'm more experienced, so I can do that. If you want, you can just hit it a couple times and then take your thumb and just kind of compress the clay into the wheel head all the way around. And I'm not digging into the clay. I'm just, you get a close-up shot of that. I'm just pushing that outer edge down into the wheel head while I'm turning. Okay, so it should be nice and secure. And I'm just gonna kind of move it a little bit. Go ahead and get a shot from the top. Now the more of this that you do, you can see this ring here, you want an equidistance, as close as you can get from that outer ring that you see that's closest to the clay, okay? You can also kind of push the clay just a little bit if you need to, but the more centered you get before you even start, the better, okay? All right, so now we're going to spin the wheel, and we're going to spin the wheel medium fast to fast. Okay, and again, I'm taking my foot off of the pedal, just so I'm not tempted to stop it. Now, the body posture for this, very important. Again, this is going to help you center. The body posture is this. You're going to tuck your elbows into your thighs, your mid-thighs. You're going to I like to elevate the back legs of my chair, okay? And what this does, I don't have a lot of upper body strength. What it does is it helps me put my body weight into the clay, okay? Also, I'm not hunched over like this. I'm bending at the hip and I'm keeping my back straight. But it is very important to keep your elbows tucked into your legs. And this part is not easy, I'm not gonna lie, okay? The idea is not to let the clay push you around, okay? You're going to be using quite a bit of strength to do this, and you wanna make sure that everything is nice and stable and locked in. You cannot throw like this with your elbows up, okay? Your elbows need to be tucked in. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead, spin my wheel, medium fast to fast. I'm going to wet my clay. And now I'm going to, with my right hand, I'm gonna grab my left thumb. And what I'm gonna be doing is I'm gonna take the heel of my hand and I'm gonna be pushing the clay right here at the 7 o'clock area. And I'm gonna push the clay, I'm gonna lift the clay up. So I'm pushing toward 1 o'clock, okay? And then I'm gonna push down. So it's back and forth. I'm gonna go up with my left hand, down with my right. Up with my left hand, down with my right. Now the key here is to keep your hands together, okay? You can't do it like this with your hands separate. It's not gonna work, all right? Always, your hands are always together when you're throwing. There might be a couple times when they're not. Okay. So we're gonna go ahead and center the clay. So again, I'm pushing at the base of the clay and I'm lifting my left hand up. Now I'm gonna wet the clay. I've got my sponge in my hand. I'm gonna wet the clay a little bit and I'm gonna push down. Okay? One thing you don't want to do is you don't want to take your hands off of the clay really quickly. I'll show you what happens when you do that in just a minute, because your clay will go off center. So that's another thing that makes your clay go off center. All right, so again, lifting up with your left hand, lowering with your right. And you might need to get extra water every once in a while. So again, digging at the base with the heel of your hand, lift the clay up and lower the clay down. Okay, now the way that you check to see if your clay is centered is you put your fingers on the sides. Sorry to say. It looks a little bit easier because I've done it a lot. Okay, so again, wetting the clay. Notice also how I don't take my left hand off of the clay when I go to get my water. Okay, so we're gonna go up again. And what you're looking for is you're looking for the clay to not be wobbling anymore. So right now I'm going to take my wooden rib and I'm going to hold it flush against the wheel head right here at 4 o'clock. I've got my hands together again. And I'm just going to remove that little ramp of clay that was at the base. Sometimes that can confuse you and make you think that the clay is off center. Okay, so we're going to feel. And I would say that that is now centered. Now I'm going to show you what happens if you take your hands off too quickly. Okay, so it's like, woohoo, I've got it centered. Oh, wait, let me do X, Y, Z. Okay, so now you have to start all over again. All right, and it's not fun, so you have to really, this also will happen if you stop your wheel really fast. If you get scared or if you feel frustrated, that's why it's good to move that pedal away from you. So we're gonna start again. So I'm gonna lift up and lower. And essentially, not only are you centering, but you're also kind of wedging the clay on the wheel when you do this. Okay, so again, I was going up with my left hand, down with my right. Now the pressure when you do this, the pressure, imagine trying to close a door that's stuck and it's, you know, it's in the door jamb, but it's a little bit off and you can't get it shut, you really have to use a lot of strength to push that door shut. It's very similar here, okay? Now, if your hands are doing this, or if your legs are doing this, then it means that you're not tucked in enough and you're not holding, you gotta use those muscles in your legs to keep everything nice and steady. Okay, so again, if your hands are doing this or your legs are moving around, that means that you're not staying tucked in. One thing you can do if you have shorter legs is you can put a couple of bricks underneath your left foot and kind of raise your knees, it'll raise your knees up a little bit so that you can kind of hunker down a little bit better and stay keep your arms and your legs more still. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're going to use our two thumbs and we're going to wet the clay and we're gonna push straight down. Notice how my hands are still together. Okay, my thumbs are together. Now if you get this little ledge right here, just use the side of your hand and push in. Okay, so go ahead and do a top shot there. Okay, so it's gonna look something like that. And you wanna leave about a quarter to a half-inch thickness down here. And you might say, well, how am I supposed to know what thickness is down there? You're gonna take your needle tool. Can you see inside? So you're going to poke it into the center. You're gonna take your index finger of your right hand. You're gonna slide it down until it touches the clay. Keep your finger there, pull it out, and you'll see that I have about a half-inch thickness, so I'm good to go, okay? So that's what you're gonna use that needle tool for that. Now you can just push on that hole there and you can just close that hole off. All right, so now opening. Remember I said we're gonna pull toward 3 and 9. So can you see inside again? So I've got my hands cupped around the clay here. Okay, now keeping the base flat, we're going to pull out toward 3 and 9. Okay, now we're gonna hug the clay back in. This is called coning. Now you're gonna do a slow release. Anytime you take your hands off the clay, it is a slow release. Remember what happens if you take your hands off fast. Your clay is gonna go off center, and if it goes off center when it's open, it's really hard to get it back on center. Okay, so now we're going to compress the base because we don't want S-cracks. S-cracks happen, the clay has memory, and if you don't compress the molecules in the clay, it can split and open after it's been fired because the clay moves while it's being fired. So what we're gonna do is we're moving our fingers from 4 to center. Okay, so we're gonna go 4 o'clock to center, and you may get a little piece of clay that comes up, but that's okay. We're gonna do that 3 to 4 times. Okay, now we're gonna wet our hands and we're gonna pull this out just a little bit more at the base. Okay, so notice how the rim didn't get whiter, but the base down here at the bottom did. Now we're gonna wet our hands again and we're gonna cone back in. So see how much the clay went in there? Okay. All right, now we're gonna do our first pull. So we're gonna wet the clay at 12 o'clock. Also, I want you to notice how I've never stopped my wheel, and it's about medium speed. It's very important to bring the clay in up here at the top to cone it in. What you're literally pulling is not a perfect cylinder with vertical walls, but instead more of a volcano, okay? Because if you try to pull a cylinder, what's gonna happen with the centrifugal force is that rim is gonna widen, and we are not making bowls for our first assignment. We are making cylinders. You're going to be making 6 mugs or cups, same thing, 2 of which will have handles, 2 will not, and the other 2 will probably be your first and second ones that you will not turn in. Okay, but you can use them for testing glazes. Okay, so now we're gonna do our first lift, and the hand is like this. Think of a claw hand or a crab hand, all right? Your thumb is going to be out here at the bottom, and you're gonna have the fingers of your left hand on the inside, and we're wetting the sponge, and we're putting our right hand underneath our thumb like this. Okay, it should look something like that, and then the clay is in between these fingers. Now the pressure that you want to use to pull the clay, think of having a really soft peach or a really soft plum, and you're pushing on the skin of that peach or plum, and you don't want to break through the skin, but you're pushing hard enough to where you see the clay actually compress. Okay, so again, wet the clay at 12, come over here at the 4 o'clock, 4:30 position, push in down at the base, and pull up toward your nose. It's very important to keep your head up over the top of the clay. Okay, you don't want your head leaning out. I'm gonna do a slow release. I'm gonna wet my hands, and we're gonna cone again. So we're starting at the base, and we're gonna lift up, and we coned, okay? So wet the clay again at 12. Again, notice how when I'm pulling, I'm keeping my hands together, okay? I'm not over here. You don't want to let your hands travel. That's not going to work. We're going to watch the base here. We're going to push in the clay with the right hand. It's going to give us that little ledge to pull up. And then again, we're literally pulling up toward our nose. Okay, and even notice how even though I'm trying to pull a volcano shape, it still flares out. All right, so there's a cup, and that's with 2 pulls. Okay, I could probably do 1 more pull. Let's go ahead and cone again. Notice how when I cone, even the base of my thumbs are together. Okay, crab hand or claw hand. And we're going to do 1 more little tiny pull just for shaping. Slow release at the rim. And then we're going to, what I like to do to clean the rim is I'm just going to take my index finger and my thumb of my left finger and use the side of my right finger, and I'm just going to kind of compress and clean that up a little bit. Now it's very important to get all of the water out of the base. You never want to leave water sitting inside of a piece. Okay. And now we're going to clean up the base. So if you could bring the camera down here, please. We're going to take our wooden rib. We're holding it flush against the wheel head. And I know it's probably not a nice sound, but we're going to kind of drag it, and then we're going to poke in and clean up that base a little bit. You can also use this tool. Kind of does the same thing, and then you can turn it so that the angle, you have the angle there, and you can clean up a little bit more of the base. All right, so at this point, you're going to wet the clay, or sorry, wet the wheel head right at the between 9 and 3 o'clock. You're going to separate your splash pan. You will have a wear board nearby. You can take that wear board, put it on your knee, and you're going to take your wire tool. You're going to wrap it around your fingers on your left hand. You're going to keep your index fingers flush, and you're going to pull through. So flush on the wheel head and pull through slowly. Okay, the piece is going to move off. Whoa, that's not what you want to have happen, but we're going to pull that off. That was exciting. We're gonna pull that off. You wanna push down here at the base, okay? And we're gonna slide that off, and we're going to put it right on top of the board. Okay, we're gonna make that round again, and we can clean it up later. What you don't wanna do, okay, you don't want to put your board up here and scoot your piece off like that. Because what happens when you do that is you'll have your cup and you'll slide it, and boom, right here it gets stuck, and you can't slide it anymore. So then you have your cup kind of hanging off the board. So it's very important to slide it off like I did, very carefully, hopefully without it falling off like mine did. And you're gonna scoot it into your left hand and then place it on the board. Remember to scoot it down here at the base, okay? All right, so cleaning this up. Also, I wanna mention, if you put a cup here in the corner, you'll have room for a cup here and room for a cup here. Try not to place it right in the center of the board, because then you end up with multiple boards, and it also makes it easier to cover with plastic when you're storing pieces. So cleaning the wheel head can be as easy as taking this guy and spinning the wheel and cleaning it. Then you're ready for your next piece of clay, but you do want to dry it, okay? And then you can start throwing. Remember, you need to clean these, so at the end of class, you can kind of pour the water inside your bucket if you want. You will most likely have more water than I have right now. Any chunks like this again, please throw those into the dumpster. Okay, you'll clean these outside, and then you'll clean the whole area of the wheel. So we'll also be cleaning the tabletop area here. Make sure you turn the wheel off and put your chair back on top of the wheel head and your pedal up here. Okay, so that's that for the first one, and the next video I will show you how to use a bat.